no matter where I've been in my job, in my career, I've never let my title
define
me as who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And I say that to actors as well. Like, you can't let, that job or that opportunity define you lesser or greater than, because what you bring to it is what you bring to it. What I bring to the table is what I bring to it. So like when they say, Marlo Tiede, casting director, it's like, yes, that's what I do, but that's not necessarily my identity.
Today, we're hanging out with casting director Marlo Tiede to find out why she moved to Atlanta, Georgia when she was a casting executive in Los Angeles, how she balances the relationship with her husband, who's an actor, and so much more. Welcome to Get Scene Unscripted. I'm your host, Jesse Malinowski. We are going to dive into acting insights, meet industry pros, and master the business. Don't forget to subscribe and share. We're keeping you behind the scenes and ahead of the game. Yes, everyone, we are back. This is Get Scene Unscripted. So glad that you are here. Get ready for another powerful episode to bring you amazing industry insight. I quickly want to just say thank you to everyone that has been leaving us a review and watching on YouTube and commenting. It's really, really fun and really so impactful to me, honestly, to read those comments, read those reviews. So thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to know that this podcast is making an impact on your actor journey. And I also want to shout someone out. Mr. Andrew McAllister. What's up, Andrew? He said, there's literally no doubt this is the most important podcast to stay ahead and topical in the acting world. With all the changes happening, staying grounded and informed is paramount to success. Subscribe, follow, and listen to Jesse from Get Scene Studios and industry professionals as we get ready for what's next. You know what, everyone? I think you should listen to Andrew right now. Subscribe or follow or comment or whatever it is you're about to do. Thank you in advance. And let's get started. We got a casting director in the house, everyone. It is Miss Marlo Tiede.
Hello.
What's up?
Hello.
I'm so glad that you're here. And speaking of TD, you're a football fan, aren't you?
Big football fan.
The Eagles, right?
No.
Who is it?
So my husband's originally from New England, so
Okay.
I married into a Patriots family.
Okay, well that's not a bad team to be rooting for. No. I mean, right now not great, but
no, but it was for a very long time.
Yeah.
But my family's originally from Arizona, so we're actually college football fans first, and we're Arizona State fans. So,
okay, nice.
And that one has not been as fun to root for, but you root for your home team, right?
Yep. Awesome. How is the home? Is everyone like into football? Like, is it like it's Sunday and like this is our sacred football day, or?
Well, both Eric and I play fantasy football.
Oh,
so
nice. Yeah.
Sunday is one of those days where you put on Red Zone and you're locked in for 7 hours.
Yeah, you really are. Yeah, the Red Zone is definitely the way to do it.
Yeah,
it's definitely the way to do
especially for fantasy.
Yeah. It's pretty fun. And so did you beat him this year? How did this go?
I did.
Nice.
I actually beat everybody and came in first place.
Whoa!
In my league. Thank you very much.
Okay.
First time. I think I've played for 14 years and I've never done better than like 6th place. But this year I did it.
Heck yeah! Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
This is your give your speech. Give your celebration speech.
I mean, I did on our fantasy, text chain.
Okay.
There's a lot of trash talking.
Nice. Yeah.
I don't know if it'd be totally appropriate.
I feel that.
But I was very proud of myself. No thanks to anybody that played the last week, because everybody on my team was trash, and somehow I still pulled it out.
Yeah. Nice. I feel like that's how it goes in fantasy, right? Like sometimes it's everyone still plays terrible, you somehow still win, and there's also times where everyone plays fantastic and you still lose.
Totally, because
that's the worst.
You play the fluke person who scored
you're like, I would beat
points.
Everyone else in the league except this person.
Yeah. Well, I'm much more a fantasy reaper in that whoever I pick is my first pick will always be out for the season. Or be out for Justin Jefferson was my first pick this season,
Yeah.
and then was out for like I don't even know how many weeks, and then finally I got him back, and he was trash. So like,
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
That's how it
everybody I
goes.
pick in my first pick is always like destined to be at the bottom of a trash can.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I feel like when it comes to people in the entertainment industry, there's like a small percentage of them that are into sports, and the other percentage is like, please stop. So for the larger percentage, we'll move on out of
respect.
Yeah, out of respect. So you moved from Los Angeles not too long ago to the Southeast.
Mm-hmm.
You were the casting executive for Freeform, which is under the like Disney umbrella. I mean, I feel like everything's under the Disney umbrella at this point.
One would think.
Yeah, so I'd love to know about how that transition was for you, and I guess start with like ultimately why you even decided. I would think somebody's like, oh, casting executive, like that's the top. Why would you leave?
Right.
Like, so yeah.
Well, just to back it up, caveat being everything I say is my opinion, right?
Totally.
Like, and then like my journey and whatnot has led me to my education of things. But so I started casting like early 2000s. And so we could still intern and do things along those lines. So like I interned, I became an assistant associate, and eventually became like a casting director. That was my path. So I worked in like creative casting for, 12 years, like leading up to me moving over to Freeform and being manager of casting there. And so I had a full career of knowledge and credits and things like that before I decided to transition, because executive jobs don't come up very often. There's as many as we think exist. It's actually a very small team, like small teams in each of these studios and networks, right? And sometimes like they don't have them at all. Like Netflix didn't have a casting department for a really long time, but they do now, and they fill that role. But I just thought to myself, this is a different part of casting, right? It's a different opportunity. I'm going to learn how TV is made through doing, instead of casting being the like micromanaging one show or two shows or just revolving around those shows. You learn how to like, it's more macro. You have an overview of everything that's on the studio or the network, which one you're working for. So it's two different like muscles you grow. And so I thought, what a great opportunity. It's not like particularly like in my wheelhouse to be like a corporate person.
Right.
And like follow those rules, but like I did, and I learned ultimately it wasn't where I found joy and like in my career and my job. And so I gave myself enough time in which I thought I could go and have a truly full developmental cycle, so that I could really learn from start to finish what it felt like to make television.
Yeah.
Like learn how the sausage is made, if you will, right? And so the things that I learned at my time at Freeform is what I feel has made me a better casting director now, having now transitioned back to what I call creative casting, which is, casting on each individual show and doing the auditions and not as an executive, but as just the casting director on the project. It's made me a better casting director. It's made me a better partner, because now I have a larger view of what everybody is doing, not just at the production level, but like at the studio and the network level. And so I can have conversations with my studio and my network people that I wouldn't have been able to have before, because I know and I can think like, if I was in their position, what would I do? How could I avoid this? Or how could I pivot this? So I think that's what casting does really well is that it's a multitasking job. It's a we always have to be multiple steps ahead of everybody, but also doing 17 things at one time.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like it made me a more well-rounded and more thoughtful about my job going forward, because I just have when you get that insight of how you fit in the cog, it just makes you more confident
Yeah.
because in one way, not everything revolves around you, and that you're part of something that altogether makes the bigger product, versus having that stress that everyone is just on you for something. And you realize, like, I'm just such a small part of the giant machine that is, like, our industry. So
Here at Get Seen Studios, I believe we really specialize in helping actors get agents. And so my favorite challenge is coming up, everyone. And for a limited time, you could get this 6-workshop series that's live for only $28. It's our Get an Agent Challenge, everyone. It's 2 weeks, 6 workshops, all live online. Now, if you miss anything, don't even worry about it, because everything is recorded. But what this 6-part series really focuses on is gives you every tool and tactic you need to get an agent. And we're all together holding one another accountable to make sure you do the homework, you do what's needed so you can get an agent. Everyone, I love this challenge so much because people that have been looking for agents for 2 years get them in 2 weeks. It is unbelievable. So again, everyone, for a limited time, it is only $28. So grab your spot right now. You'll see the link in the pinned comments below. I cannot wait to see you there. Grab your spot for our Get an Agent Challenge. Yeah, you said that you ultimately, like, you weren't finding the joy in that particular department or position, whatever you want to say. I feel like it takes so much courage to be able to kind of face that. And you kind of like feel like you've made it to the top in a sense, right? And you're like, oh wow, this isn't exactly what I thought it would be or what I hoped it to be. Like, did you maybe feel like you were going backwards?
No, I mean, because no matter where I've been in my job, in my career, I've never let my title
Define
me as who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And I say that to actors as well. Like, you can't let, that job or that opportunity define you lesser or greater than, because what you bring to it is what you bring to it. What I bring to the table is what I bring to it. So, like, when they say, Marlo Tiede, casting director, it's like, yes, that's what I do, but that's not necessarily my identity. And so I've never put much weight on the title definition or the job definition, if you will. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So, like, I always thought that the opportunity to learn doing the executive route, because there's some amazing people that have never done creative casting and have only been casting executives, and they love it, and that's their life, and that's great for them. And there's some people that have only been creative casting directors that have never gotten the opportunity to do the executive route either, and they love it, and that's great for them. For me, I just thought what an opportunity to kind of like dip your toe in each one, and there's no reason why you can't do both or for however long a time. I realized right around 2.5 years that, like, I just wasn't finding the joy in the job that I had when I was. Now, know that I'm in Los Angeles, so like we still did live like auditions because this is pre-COVID. And so I missed being in the room with actors. I missed reading opposite actors. I missed kind of the buzz and the joy and the energy that was. And I missed working in more of a micro scale rather than a macro scale. When you're an executive, one of the things that you do is you really get the pleasure of watching the choices and approving people, or you get to sit in the testing room and you get to be one of the people going like yes or no, you know, and being able to literally change lives, especially in the scenario with like series regular, like that can change somebody's life. But for me, as great as those big joys were, it was kind of the day-to-day stuff that was, you know, more like calling people's agents because they need to take, you know, a post down because they were, they revealed something of a script page or, you know, things like that. It was like more monotonous stuff.
Yeah.
That didn't like
fulfill you.
Didn't fulfill me. Yeah. And so I thought, you know, let's call it what it is. And I gave it a shot. And now I'm like ready to go back to, you know, casting creatively again. And so I gave my 2 weeks and I left basically the last week in February of 2020. And then either I had the best timing or the worst timing in the next week, like we all hit COVID. And, you know, ultimately, I think personally, it would have been very hard and difficult to do that job remotely and also take care of my family. I have 2 boys, you know, and they really needed socially and, you know, for a lot of, I mean, all of us needed, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And they needed me to be mom for them at that time. And so I think like, I absolutely believe in kismet, like it was meant to be. And then my husband, who's also an actor, you know, we started thinking like, well, if we can do this anywhere, why not entertain the idea? Like for the first time in 15 years, I had not been under contract somewhere. I had not been under a show. Like, so I was genuinely free from like any obligations that I had in Los Angeles. And then the first thing we did was look at like real estate in Georgia. And you're like, oh no, we're donezos. And so we actually...
You're like, you can get what? For what? Let's go.
Yeah, yes. More than 3 bedrooms? What are you talking about? But it was all meant to be, right? Mm-hmm. Like it was our journey. And we flew to Georgia. We started doing a lot of our research about what's shooting here, what's shooting in the Southeast, and just the astronomical numbers versus Los Angeles. Because I've always said, like, I feel like Los Angeles Stockholm syndromes you into believing like you have to be in Los Angeles. And that if you're not in Los Angeles and if you're not succeeding in Los Angeles, that you're a failure. And that's so untrue.
Yeah.
And, you know, it took having to take myself physically out of Los Angeles for me, like hindsight, to go back and look and be like, yeah, you don't have to be there. You go where the work is.
Yeah.
And we have work here. So it was a lot of, like you said, gambling. But Eric and I both felt it was like, if we can't bet on ourselves, who's going to bet on us?
I love that. You talked about the amount of work. And so like comparatively, what is the difference, I guess, between, like Hollywood to Atlanta? Because I feel like the thought is like, well, like people come shoot here, then they go back to Los Angeles but it always seems like anyone that I talk to is like, you're going to get like 5 times the opportunity here.
It's true.
So like, is it because there's 5 times the amount of work, or like the competition is that much lower, or like what is why is it like kind of, I guess, as an artist, maybe like Atlanta so much better right now?
I think it's a little bit of everything you said. I think that it's the amount of things that are shooting here. I think that it's there's less casting directors here. So the idea is that every casting director would have, you know, a few projects instead of it being so spread out between, you know, there's so many casting directors in LA. And, there's not as many in New York, but like we're talking about LA, but just it's the quantity of actors, right? And versus opportunity, I think, which is genuinely what it is. I just think that Los Angeles, like, it raises your stakes if you go there. And I'm not just talking about the quantity of people, of actors that are going to Los Angeles. I'm talking about there's more agents and there's more managers, and you would think that would be more opportunity, but that's not necessarily the
dilutes
case.
it.
Exactly. And not every agent and manager are willing to, hip pocket somebody or take a green artist and try to get them opportunities. They want you on the ground running when you get to LA. There is no hand holding there.
Right, yeah.
You're not gonna be able to call your agent and just like get something like, oh, I don't understand what this wording is on my contract. Like they don't have time for that. That's the education you should have had before you jumped into this pool. And it's a big pool. Mm-hmm. And so...
But I feel like that's such a great point, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm like, I just love what you just said, because I do feel like that you're talking about the education aspect is like, that should be here too,
100%.
I don't think the Southeast should have any kind of reputation of like, we're holding hands, like we're just as professional as an LA and New York. But that does come down to what you just said of like, the actor needs to be doing their work and like putting in their 90% and like understand that an agent is there to help get them opportunities, not explain shit.
100%.
Yeah.
And that knowing, like, for me, casting is like 40% artistic, 60% business, right?
Yeah.
That this is a business. Like, actors will do the work in regards to acting classes and, they'll put in the work there and then completely ignore the other half of what being an actor is, which is the business mentality of the job. And for some reason, and I'm not saying that this is a here mentality, it could be anywhere, but it is just, in my opinion, like actors then fall back on thinking that their agent is the one who procured them the work, but also needs to explain to them like what they negotiated.
Yeah.
When in reality, especially when it comes to TV, it's a real like standard type of, even though there's a trillion different contracts out there, but like when it comes to TV, there's a real kind of standard kind of protocol. And as an actor, if you don't know that and you're constantly asking your representation, and I think here the representation is just so much nicer.
Oh man,
so
they are.
Like,
it's the Southern hospitality,
it really is.
like hard.
They're like, they don't want to hold your hand because they want to make you do the work. Like, it's all there. It's all out there, even though it's almost unreadable on the SAG-AFTRA website. It's still there, right? In terms and deal points and things like that. And there's no harm in asking questions, especially through like the negotiation process with your agent. But I do think that like when you get on set and you're looking at your contract, and if you're reading that contract, you should know, yes, this is what it is. These are the words, like you read through your contract and because as soon as you sign that line, those are the terms you signed on.
Yeah.
So it's a lot harder to go backwards once, you've signed the line. So I think that the representation here in this market is a lot nicer just in general about things and are like willing to hold hands, even though I think that the standard is that this is a relationship between the actor and representation. And it's just the same relationship, say, that I have with representation, right? Like I don't know how to explain it. It's like you want to be cordial and nice, but this is a business. And
right.
So like there's things that like I don't have time to explain to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably how they feel with actors as well, that I shouldn't having to do this. Like
Totally. I mean, yeah, you don't want to be like, it's not your job, but I mean, I guess in just like very easy, quick terms, like it's not your job, and it's not their job to explain that stuff and hold any hands. It's like I feel like there is like someone else that I remember my acting instructor in New York said this. He was like, there is like somebody that looks like you, that's like just as talented as you, that's like probably fitter than you, that's like doing it. And you know what I mean? So it's like those things that like you have control over, like getting that knowledge and learning those types of things, like that's in your control. Like you need to take it because that other person that's similar to you is also out there and they will beat you if you don't like step up to the plate.
Mm-hmm. And that's just across the board, right? Like, I think that's what this influx of people from Los Angeles and New York coming to this market, me being one of them, is that my expectation is like high, right?
Yeah.
I am a working professional. I expect the same from you. And, it's always a mixed bag when we get like our self-tapes back about lighting, sound, a backdrop. And again, like I can't really tell you now what to do, right?
Because like that tape just goes in the garbage, right?
Or if it's sent early enough, I can, and I see something there, I can reach back out to the agent and say like, they did a really good job. That's not the standard in which I can send to my producers. Can they retape it with this, and that? Or might I suggest they they retape this? We had just a cop. It was like a 3-line cop in the last episode that we were shooting, and it's hard, especially in a show that hasn't aired yet, so we don't really know tone-wise all that much. It's really hard. I understand that. The cop was like a small-town cop. I probably should have put that in there. I just didn't think about it like right at the beginning of when I was, putting out the appointments.
Yeah.
And we got a bunch of them back. It was like 50-50, like small-town cop, 50-50, like CSI investigator, type, where the stakes were very high and it just wasn't needed in that scene. It was more like they're just walking through, like looking at stuff. But the couple people who sent their tapes in on the earlier side, because I watch my tapes, through the course of the timeline that I've given, and we called a bunch of them and we're like, hey, it's just not that high stakes. Like if they can do it one more time, we'd love to see them like try again, So I guess that's one of the benefits of being timely with your tapes is that you can possibly get some redirection if needed.
Yeah, that's the thing that's like so tough with the self tapes, right? Like there's so many pros to self tapes, but we're as the actor, like you're literally just guessing.
That's it most of the time, right? And it's kind of a catch-22, I feel sometimes, because if we put too much information in the notes, are we giving you the freedom to find that character and like really do some like interesting back work with it?
Yeah.
But it's also relative to the size of the role, right? Like if it's 2 lines, 3 lines, like I don't need you to make a mountain out of a molehill. I need you just to pretty much like say the lines.
Yeah. I feel like you can never go wrong with one of those takes. It's like, you've done this 100 times, just say the lines. Like that take will never do you wrong, I feel like.
Most of the time, if we're speaking very generically, there is, on those small roles, they're looking for something specific, right? Like it might not be my vision, but it could be something that the director like has in their mind for it, or that the writer has in their mind for it. And so it's my job to kind of collect different versions of it and send it. And then they tell me like, oh, I thought that guy was great, because it's like what they had in their head. And they didn't even like maybe tell me. And it was just like giving options. And speaking of like the one-liners and the, you know, the two-liners and stuff like that, like the very small roles, that it's just like, you don't really need to make much out of it. Because most of the time, if it's you, it's you.
Exactly. When you did move here, you first started at Stillwell. What were like, I guess, some of the challenges in moving, like, or were there not any challenges? Did it work out exactly how you saw, like, or challenges within like getting to know everyone, or how was that like transition and like back into the business, if you will, here in the Southeast?
Yeah, I mean, not only was I transitioning from being an executive for a couple of years and being kind of out of the groove of day-to-day casting, I was transitioning to a different market. And so it was important for me to obviously, like day one, like start introducing myself to all the agents and managers and you know, and the players in this market, and try to get my name out there as an option here, but also meet everyone here that does this job, like this industry here. And so, you know, it was like a lot of meetings. It was a lot of Zoom meetings. It was a lot of, you know, asking for, you know, like, hey, put together like your roster for me in some form. Like, you know, if these are the 25 people that like I need to know on your roster, like who are those like 25 people? I mean, and it's intimidating because, you know, you're starting over again. It's like casting is a process, right? And so like you can cast anywhere. What makes you a casting director is the ability to know these people, to know the, you know the agents, know the managers that you're dealing with. So like that's why being local casting is so important, because, you know, that's why they hire us, right? They need us to know our market.
Right.
Right. And so I don't know. It was a little intimidating, but it wasn't like anything that I haven't done before, right? And so there was a learning curve to it. I think more than anything, it was making people at the studios and network in Los Angeles know that I'm here. And because it is a small network of casting directors that work here. So, you know, like trying to make your way in there is probably been the most difficult part out of everything. It's reminding people that I'm an option here.
Yeah. I feel like actors think like them getting work is so hard, right? But like also casting is essentially it's like a different puzzle piece within the process, but like yeah, 100%. You're like hustling the same way.
Absolutely.
I would think that based on your experience and your like previous position, like it would just be like an easy layup. Like what are some of the challenges that like you have to deal with? I mean, I know that you said, you know, I guess just like getting them to know or think of you, but are there like specific things like you have to do to like kind of, other than like sending them emails, I guess, or something? Like how does that process work, I guess?
It's a lot. I think actors don't think that casting and acting is like as closely knit as like we live. But like I'm always hustling. I'm always hustling for the next gig because relatively speaking, I'm new to this market.
Yeah.
You know, I've only been here a couple years. So I'm still trying to establish myself. Like there's casting directors here that they just get calls and, you know, they do the next project and it's, you know, things like that. And their avails are checked and whatnot. And I'm always like, I get on Production Weekly, which is something that you can get a subscription to, and it emails you every week, and it has basically where everything is shooting. And so like I type in Atlanta or Southeast or Georgia or whatever, and you know, they list basically like what's shooting here. So then I'll like email those producers or those,
Oh, yeah,
you know.
smart.
And so it's always trying to think. In our industry, it's so frustrating because most of the time when you get information, it's old information.
I was going to say it's late, right?
It's late.
Yep.
It's already, you know, and 90% of the time that like I'll get a response back is like, oh, we already have, you know, the local casting on
Yeah.
it. Or we're still deciding if we're going to shoot it here or someplace else, or, you know, we're still figuring that out. But it's all of these small things that you have to like lay down to be the path that you have to walk on, right? And so it's never a waste of my time to do this, because if the answer is, oh, we already have somebody on it, and then my response is, thank you so much for telling me, here's my resume, and when you guys have something else shooting in the Southeast, you let me know, and I'd love to throw my hat in the ring, you know, like, so it's always making it a positive and always trying to use any like situation that you have to be like, well, think of me next time, you know. The thing that is a positive and negative is that like certain producers like working with certain people, and that is great when you're that person.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes that's just how it works. You know, like it's just finding those producers or directors that like working with you, and this goes for actors as well. Like again, we're more tightly knit than what I think an actor will give credit for.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I feel like it's interesting. I mean, I feel like just kind of like the world. It's like the business is so big, but then like so small at the same time. You mentioned your husband, who's an actor. Can you talk about how you juggle that relationship, you know, with casting director, actor, husband, wife, and even like, have you ever had to deal with like the perceived kind of like, oh, are you like hooking up your husband or whatever? Like, I'm sure that like that has come up at some point.
You know, nobody's ever said that to me to my face, but I mean, it could be thoughts and whatnot. You know, it's Eric and I met in college, so we've been together a very long time.
That's awesome.
We didn't meet as actor, casting director. You know, we met as we both went to Long Beach State. So like, you know, we
two
met
people wanting to
just
go on a
two
date.
People,
Yeah,
right?
that's
so
awesome.
it was never like it's awesome to have a partner in this journey that you can talk to about your day, right?
Yeah.
Like there's things that he understands that if I was talking to somebody that just isn't in our industry, or even the narrow like path of this industry, like as actor casting, right? And so it's nice to have that person that you can talk to or just vent to, and you know, they're just like, I hear you, you know, just in general, and understand where you're coming from. The strike was hard, I think, for everybody because, you know, I think a lot of people in casting and a lot of people in our industry in general felt like kind of like a casualty of the strike. And so I'm sitting here in my house where I'm full supporting SAG-AFTRA and the writers, and, you know, and I'm a big union person, even though Georgia's a right to work state. Like coming from Los Angeles, like I am union. I'm still like, I still pay dues for $3.99. I'm a Teamster. But it was hard, you know, in a case like that where you're sitting there and you're like, and we'd all like to go back to work, please. As much as I want to support you and I'm here for you and I support what you're doing and I'm here for the rallies and I, you know, and all of that. And then on the different side of my brain, I'm like, we'd all so really like to go back to work. So, you know, there's moments like that, which are a little, it wasn't a big deal, but it was like, you know, I was trying to explain to him like what it feels like to be kind of a casualty of the scenario,
right?
You know? And again, it's nice because you can talk to them about that. There's absolutely like downsides of it. And I think Eric will be the first person to tell you that the closer you are to a casting director, the harder it is to prove that you're somebody else. You know, for me, I have admittedly a hard time seeing him be like this wide array of characters because I see him as Eric.
Right, right.
So it's kind of a catch-22 where it's like, oh man, so many opportunities. And you're like, yeah, but maybe not because, and that's just not me being married to him. That's like if you're friends with casting directors, right?
Totally,
like
yeah.
the closer that you are to somebody, it's almost the harder you have to prove that you can do it. So I think that's kind of the downside of it. But I read with him.
How's that? Get Scene Studios was founded in helping connect actors with industry pros. We bring in the top Southeast agents and casting directors to really help you get seen by the people that matter. And we really focus this on two different ways, everyone. In one of our signature in-person classes or workshops called the Get Seen 360, you get to have a self-tape evaluated, then you get to work on the callback, and then you also work on a cold read. You spend 5 hours with an industry pro in the Get Seen 360. And then for our online class, and this signature workshop we have is called the Perfect Submission. And this mimics the Actors Access submission process where you send in a headshot, a self-tape, and a demo reel or clip. And so this is an incredible way to really get feedback on what that submission is looking like. And so everyone, as a thank you for listening, every single month we're going to choose one winner and you get to choose one of these classes. Any class that you want will be absolutely free, and this will be our way of saying thank you so much. So all you got to do is head to the pinned comment below, put in your name and email, and you will be entered to win. All you got to do is put in your email one time and you will live there forever, which means if you submit this month, you could win 3 months from now, 4 months from now. So go ahead and head to that pinned comment now and good luck. Well, you must love it because you said that you missed that
I
being
did,
the executive,
yeah.
and now you don't get to read at all because of the self-tape.
Right.
So that's your only time.
I know. It's fun. I try and like compartmentalize like this is not my show. These are not my I didn't cut these sides.
Right.
You know, like there's so many things that like when you see like other things that you have to stop being a casting director or you know somebody that works in casting. And
are you like constantly like, what the heck? That's weird.
Yes. Why would you end on that line? Like why like there's so many times where I'm just a big stickler of like when I cut sides, I try to like showcase the person auditioning, and then like try to take out as much of the reader as possible because a reader is such a crapshoot that I don't want it to be distracting in tapes, right? And so then there's sometimes where he'll get like, I don't know, scenes and I'm doing most of the reading and I'm like, I just wouldn't have cut these sides like this.
Right.
This scene would have been like literally a page and a half, not like 4 pages because, you know, so then it's hard for me.
Yeah.
I try to give my best, and then he'd be like, what do you think? And I'm like, you know, and then it's fun because you just throw out stuff. Again, I'm sitting in a boat where like, I don't know anything about this character. I only have the sides. So like you're kind of an investigator, right? And so you're like looking through these things and like, well, why would they have said it that way? You know, like have you ever thought that it could be this? You know, and it's kind of fun to have an active person as a reader. I would imagine as an actor, I can only guess.
I think as on the actor side, you have to be with somebody that like you really trust, and then you also have to be just very open. I could see some actors maybe like getting offended or defensive. Like, well, wait, that's my choice. Like, I want to be right, kind of, you know? And so I think if you can be in that self-tape process and you're with somebody that like, you know, in trust and love, you could just be more open and that maybe comes easier. And I think that then you can stumble upon some like really cool choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think Eric would say has been his
Oh.
What do you think you would say has been like maybe like a big thing that's been able to help him being married to you based on like your experience? So like what do you think like he maybe like steals like, oh wow, that's cool. I'm glad I know that. That's going to help me on my actor journey.
I think one of the things that, again, I don't want to speak for him, but in my head, when we were in LA, he would read for us a lot.
Oh, cool.
He would read a lot,
Yeah.
like especially during pilot season when we would be reading like series regulars and things like that. And if I needed somebody that I could trust, because I needed a good reader that could read opposite like the like ones and twos on the call sheet, right? And so I needed that person. I needed somebody who I could trust, and he was that for me. I always he was my go-to guy, and I, as much as I respected him doing that, the return of that, I think for him was very early on, the idea that once you leave the room, like you have to just like let it go, because you're gifted the opportunity to be in the room for a session, and you get to hear as an actor like what is the feedback, what are they saying about you after you leave, or what is being said in general. And almost all of the time I was like, yeah, that was great. What are we having for lunch? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's the idea that you can just throw it away after it's done, because you might have already been written off the second that you leave the room, or you're, obviously you can still be in contention for things, but the idea that you've given your best and the feedback can be, yeah, but they're just not right for this role. Or, well, they have red hair and that person has red hair, so we can't cast them because you can't have two redheads. It's like the silly conversations or the things that producers and writers and directors and even casting like come up with as a reason for or against somebody is just so wackadoodle that at some point you just, instead of driving yourself crazy over something, you just come to terms with the fact that you did your best work, your work speaks for yourself, and you have to let it go. And I think Eric learned that pretty early on. And so, his journey has never been one of a bitter actor.
That is so helpful. Can you tell me how you feel like he got there? Or I guess how it might be the other way around of he hasn't gotten to the bitter actor. I don't know. Is there anything that he does or practices that you see that allows him to kind of be open and I guess maybe optimistic, and as opposed to that bitterness that happens?
Him and anybody else, right? That just understands that that there's such a larger game at play, that the auditioning of a working actor is the job.
Yes.
Right? We wake up, we put stuff on tape, or we, if you're a voice performer, you go in the booth and you lay down your tracks and this and that. Basically any opportunity at any level, right, is that's the job. And that when you book something, that's the bonus.
Yes.
That's when you go get to play. That understanding that as an actor, your job is auditioning, and that when you do hit that bonus, that you get to go and get to play with other actors. That's the goal. Mm-hmm. But it's having that realistic expectation that having opportunities should never have the feeling of putting you out.
Oh, that's so good.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Having the opportunities is what however many years ago when you started, you wish you had.
Totally, yeah.
And just not losing that appreciation of opportunity. And like, I'm not saying this was him, but just as like in general, like last minute auditions happen a lot, especially like in voiceover. Like they'll like, something will come up and they'll want you to throw something down real quick. Or you'll get an opportunity real quick on camera that, you just are like, yeah, somebody fell out. I need you everything back by the end of the day. And you're just like, huffing and puffing about it. And it's like, well, look at it this way. Your agent, out of all these people on their roster, thought, like, in this case, you could be a home run for them. So you think, great. I'm somebody they can count on.
Right, exactly.
To be that to an agent is like gold for an actor, right? Like you want to be that. And so same thing with casting. It's like if I have only 5 minutes to cast this role and I'm literally asking for you, then I know that you can hit it. And then having gained that with a casting director is huge, So instead of looking at it as a negative and huffing and puffing about like the fact that like, oh man, I've got to pull out all my stuff and I got to do this really quickly. And I know that it's not going to be the best. We all understand that, right? Like we understand the parameters of what we're asking actors to do in the time frame and what the expectation is, right? It's not going to be fully produced and this and that, right? So, but it's just understanding, it's looking at the positive of it instead of the negative of.
And I think understanding that's a choice.
Absolutely.
At any moment, you could look at the negative. At any moment, you could look at the positive. And every single day, we're choosing. And like bringing some awareness to that. Like, oh, if I'm not feeling good about myself, or if I'm not feeling good about this, and I'm kind of looking at these negative things and I'm complaining, like bringing some awareness to that. Because as soon as you bring the awareness to it, you can be like, oh, maybe I should start making the other choice instead. Or, maybe you realize it's based on like your surroundings, your community, the people around you. Like there's like some of that negative energy and you're like, oh, maybe I need to distance myself from that. But ultimately, like choosing the like just happier life really is what it comes down to.
Yeah. But caveat being said, like I understand that there are times in which you have to choose whether or not you want to do something. And then that's like a different kind of mental jungle gym, right? As an actor, is whether or not like you get something and you're like, this is an opportunity, but have I climbed the ladder enough that I want to pass on something? Or that you feel like you're above said role, or that you're not comfortable with something in the role. And so there is this moment as an actor that you have to say, like, kind of take self, like, a self, it's not worth, but you know what I mean? Like you have
Totally.
to like define like where I am and is this worth my time? Like I'm a big time versus money person in life, just in general, and like also in business. And so like there's sometimes that Eric and I have conversations about like, he'll be like, I just don't know. Like I'm kind of on the fence about this one or whatnot. And, a lot of it's, is it worth your time?
Totally. Yeah. I know for me, I feel like I've gotten to the point where if I'm like, one line valet or something, like I actually have been like, if I book that and I'm on set, like I'm actually going to feel bad about myself at where I'm at in my career. Like now, like I actually will feel bad. Like I actually will not like it. Like I'll be on set and I will like be halfway to miserable, So it's like, and that's okay for me to feel that way. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like I've done that before. I've done it multiple times. I know I can do it. I've accomplished that. And now I don't want to do it anymore. I want to do more, Or like I'll go do something. Like I'd rather serve somebody else, you know, I'd rather give my time to that. So I think it's just like, just making the decision and I think owning it
100%.
really is like what it comes down to. And it doesn't make you bad, good.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's okay. But like, understand that at least in this particular case, like, well, I'll lose out on some opportunities because those opportunities exist here. So if you know that you're going to lose out on opportunities and you're okay with that, then like, that's fine.
Like I've said for the beginning of time, like actors are your own CEO, right?
Yep.
So you ultimately need to make those decisions for yourself. And you do bring in your agent and or your manager, you know, and you have these discussions. But I think it's also imperative that you have those discussions because like if you're not interested in doing one-line ballet anymore and you haven't told, you know, your representation that, they're still submitting you for these, you know,
Right.
level of type of things. And happy when they get you those opportunities.
Because they're working hard to get you
Because they're
that,
working
yeah,
hard to
totally.
get those. And so then they present you with it and your response is, I'm going to pass. That's deflating for them as well. So it's that open line of communication with your representation of where your like self-evaluation has brought you to, you know, where you see yourself and your value and your worth.
Yeah. With those kind of like smaller roles in mind, some people I think could argue that, you know, the Southeast or Atlanta, or whatever you want to say, is like more of like a location market. And so you're only getting those smaller roles. Having experience as like the casting executive in Los Angeles and then coming here, how do you view the Southeast and where do you think it's going?
Well, my journey has allowed me to be a casting director in LA that had multiple shows in Atlanta and have worked with, you know, casting directors here as the local side of things.
Yeah.
I've been executive on multiple things that have shot here as the executive. And I've also now been like location casting.
Right.
So I've
Yeah,
kind
you've
of
done all of it.
I've done it all in a way. And, you know, I've only been here since I moved here September 2020. Okay. So again, with the caveat saying I've only been here that amount of time. In LA, when I was like, say, casting director in Los Angeles, the process that I had with all of my location shows was we would get on a casting conference call. This is pretty standard with writer, director, producers, whoever, you know, was available. And we would break down the new roles of any said episode. And we would decide either if it was for budget purposes or for how big they were or, you know, numerous reasons. We would shuffle out which roles we thought should be coming from LA and which roles should be coming from the local, you know, casting department. And that's still to this day what I do, except now I'm on the other side of it and I'm, you know, sitting there hashing out what do we think we have here and how can I help budget-wise. Again, the budget determines a lot of things.
Right.
And I think that that's when you get into the business side of casting, you know, and just what it is money-wise. I think I have been on the side of shows, not necessarily shooting in this market, but just shows in general, where I felt like the local casting director really wasn't trying very hard to find anybody and that they would bounce it back to us and be like, well, we tried and they couldn't find it. Or like, we found 3 people that we thought were good and, you know, and then the producers or somebody didn't like them. So then they bounced it back to LA. That happens, right? Like, but that's what annoyed me about being an LA casting director and working with local casting directors was that like effort of like trying to find that person. Because in LA, like it begins and ends with you, right? So like if you can't find it, who's going to find it? So you pivot, you change, like you say, okay, we've exhausted this. Can we look here? Can we change this? Can it be a man? Can it be a woman? Can it be, like, can we change the diversity? What can we do to pivot and find this for you and make this make you happy with the choices? And that's what I've tried to do here, is bring that mentality to this market and fighting for the larger roles, saying, well, can I have a shot at them? Advocating for the recurring parts. Knowing that I can say, well, if we find them here, how much have I helped our budget?
Right.
Use what I know about the business side and try, and convince the producers and the line producers, well, what's the harm in me seeing it here as well? And that's just opening opportunities. And I think that COVID really was helpful to our market because we weren't able to bring as many of the larger, say, guest stars as normally is probably not just for budget reasons, but because we physically couldn't, get them here.
Right.
With everything and the testing and all of that. And so I think that the idea that our market can handle these type of roles sits in the hands a lot of the times of local casting. It's my job to convince my producers and my director and anybody else who will listen to me that we have it here. Just give me the opportunity to show you, instead of sitting back and saying well, if LA can find it.
Right. Well, what is the benefit though of you doing that? I know all the actors are what the heck, Jesse? That's the worst question ever. But I mean, from your point of view though, what's the benefit of you being yeah, no, I can get the recurring guest star, because I guess I guess I don't know how casting gets paid. I'm do you get paid per role?
No.
So what, yes, what's the benefit of you no, let me do more work essentially for nothing?
Well, work begets work, right? So if I'm bringing the best to my producers, not just the same 4 people over and over and over and over and over again, if I'm bringing them multiple choices, if I'm doing the legwork of giving opportunities, it only makes the cream rise to the top, right?
I love that because it's just, because that's such a great mentality for everything, just do your best in whether it's work begets work or that type of energy begets more of that type of energy. It's just have that type of attitude of I just want to do great, be great. Everything I do is great. And that's where I live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's my standard.
We need to protect our market, right? So we as casting, we as actors, we always have to be putting out top tier because we're also, and I'm speaking for myself, me as a casting director, I'm not always guaranteed a job on a show. There's multiple shows that are shooting in Atlanta that only have an LA casting director on it. So I have to prove my worth to productions to say there is a reason why we need local casting because they know these people, they do this, they do that. I have to show them, I have to be so good at my job that they have a reason to want to hire a local casting director.
Right.
Because it's where it could go is because everybody is everywhere now, and we're doing pretty much everything self-tapes. And even though people are saying back in LA, they want to get back in the room, but do they really?
Totally.
I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I
feel they'll get back in the room and then they'll be
why did we choose to do this?
Yeah, why did I decide to put on pants?
And I know that sounds counterintuitive to what I said earlier about being in the room and how I missed it.
But it was a different time.
But it was a different time.
Yeah, exactly.
And in this market, self-tape has been king forever.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody in this market really had an edge.
Oh, 100%.
On
I was
different
like,
markets
LA
that
and
didn't
New York
know.
doesn't even know what a good self-tape looks like, and we are crushing it over here.
Fuddling their way through it, hoping like we'd get through COVID quickly just so they could,
Right.
And with that being said, like auditioning and that's as a whole different topic. Auditioning is a different set of skills than actually when you get on set.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
So like there is something to be said about like going in the room, having like there is a way that there's different tactics. Like if you audition well in the room, you miss that, right? Because that's what you were really good at.
It's a different skill. I mean, that is a different skill than the self-tape skill.
It's a separate.
And now the live Zoom, that's a different skill too. Like it's all different. I mean, I feel, there was a time where it's just like, oh, there's like a self-tape, the callback in person. And then also don't forget the cold read, right? You're like, oh, we'd like you for this too. Why don't you go take that in the room? Like it was just those three. But now there's also, I feel like the live Zoom that you got to like try to get a good grip on too. It's all different skills.
I mean, and as if I can speak for myself here, like me and Daleks is my associate whom I love and adore. We like kind of befuddle our way through those like the Zoom auditions because, I'm trying to hit record and be in the scene and Daleks is reading. It's just like your tape is never going to look as clear visually or clear sound-wise by doing it Zoom. It's really obvious when I put in...
does.
Does it?
I can show. I'll give you some cool Zoom tutorials and everything.
Because everyone that I've done like this, because now with the new contract, we offer a virtual audition option. And it's very obvious, like when I post, because I'll post from like both, my choices, and it'll be like self-tape clear, fuzzy Zoom, I'm not saying that that's going to affect the outcome of it, but it just looks so different.
But you know what, I think that's totally like on the actor. And yes, I know it's like an expense, but for instance, like for me, I'm like, oh, let me get a live Zoom callback because I'm going to crush everyone because I know my technical is so good. And or if it's like a fast turnaround, well, nowadays your fast turnaround is only 48 hours, but prior to that, I was like, oh, let there be a 1 day turnaround because I'm going to beat out half my competition that can't do it today, but I can because I've set my life up that way. And so I think it just kind of goes back to like, this is something I have control over. So like, I'm going to take it very seriously.
Yeah. I mean, in acting, right? Like you have so many little things that you have actual control over.
Yeah.
Like let that be one of them. And just for you having that sense of confidence already here going into it, I mean, there's nothing worse than that, like the fear of, like when you're not prepared and like that it clicks on and says like, hi, how you doing? And I can only imagine like what that feels like to not just start with your best foot forward. But
Marlo, I feel like we can talk forever. You're so easy to talk to. It's so wonderful. But I do think we need to get to our spotlight sign off.
Okay.
So that's 5 questions to end us strong. And so question number 1 is, what's something you're super grateful for today?
I am super, super grateful for my family.
Yeah.
Like I said, my job doesn't define me as who I am as a person, but my family does. And so I pretty much do everything to make them proud or, like my 2 boys, they have like no idea what I do. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm sure, like I went to school, I did like professional career day and I brought in a bunch of scripts and everybody was like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a casting director. Isn't that exciting? And they're like, great.
Yeah, I don't want to read.
There's a pilot over here that's giving away wings. And they're like, you can look at my scripts. Like, no, my son didn't even take mine.
Oh, that's so funny.
But the reality is that they make me proud, and I hope only to make them proud.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Question number 2 is, What movie, TV show, book, or event changed the trajectory of your life?
COVID changed our trajectory 90 degrees, 80, 180 degrees, 360 degrees, right? Like we flew out to Georgia in June for 3 days, and then we were moving August 31st. Like it was quick because I think if we sat on it and thought about it too much, that's when you get scared. But, COVID was terrible for a lot of people, but I think that COVID was the reason why we decided to make this change in our lives. And we just kind of and went, don't look back.
Yeah.
You can't be scared to do things. Like I said, we bet on ourselves. Nobody's going to bet on you. If you can't bet on yourself, who is? Who's going to be that person in your life? And for me, it was my relationship with Eric, and we just thought it's going to benefit both of us. I can do my job here. You can do your job here. It's be the bigger fish in the smaller pond, if you will, instead of always feeling like you're the smaller fish in the ocean of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because it's not just acting, but casting. There's so many casting directors. You know what I mean? Your opportunities are just so much smaller. The opportunity, if all these amazing casting directors who have been doing this for so many years and have so many Emmys and hopefully soon, Academy Awards starting in 2025,
right.
Which is awesome. But it's competition, right? So put yourself in a situation where you're the big fish, even if it's just in your own mind that you're the big fish, that you can bring something to this. And I thought for me, I can bring something to this market. I can bring my knowledge of my journey to this market. And so we're let's do it. So I think COVID is probably
Big event.
a big event.
I mean, I think for so many people, although, I mean, I guess I think it depends on who you are. Some people I feel just kind of waited, which that's fine if that's what you did. And I think other people said I'm going to use this as whatever opportunity I can kind of create from it and turn this into a positive. And I think that has I think we should all think about that in so many different areas of our life. And we have the ability to turn things into a positive if we make that choice. Kind of back to that choice,
Yeah.
right? The third question is, what's something you really cherish in your daily routine?
What do I cherish in my daily routine? Something that I do, and I make it a point in my head to do it, is that I acknowledge who's ever in the room. In my house, if I'm walking from room to room, and even if it's because I have 3 cats, and even if it's just bending down and petting them and acknowledging their presence, their existence, and I do it with my kids. If I walk through a room and I'll say hi, or, it's just acknowledging their energy. It's acknowledging them. It's not taking anything for granted. It's just I don't know. I just have always done that, and it can be totally annoying, I'm sure, at times.
You're Mom, you just said hi.
Yeah, you just said hi, but I'll just walk through and be hey guys, just it's me giving them my energy, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
acknowledging them and I don't know, just being appreciative of them in my space.
I think that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
The fourth question is, what's something you're trying to improve in your life right now?
I mean, I think something that I struggled with a lot in Los Angeles was setting boundaries, setting work boundaries, being available to everyone every minute of the day, and how it's not attainable in real life. And I got very, very, very burnt out multiple times. Just the idea that I couldn't be my best for everyone every second of the day. And I think what's kind of nice about working on the East Coast time is that like I have a head start on everybody in Los Angeles by like 3 hours basically. And the projects that I've worked on have been really gracious for the most part about the fact that like even though it's 7:00 their time, it's 10:00 our time. So like it's the idea that they'll write the email, but their expectation isn't that like I have to respond. And so it's something I literally work on every day, either personally, like in my personal life, but also in work life. It's just getting better about setting boundaries. You know what I mean? Just
100%. And I feel like
don't, and that's my problem.
But you know what? Like, and we're the ones that create the boundaries, and like we're the ones that set the expectations. If you are responding to emails at 10 p.m. on the East Coast time, then they're just like, oh,
right.
great.
Oh, she's
that's
up.
what she does.
Great.
Like, that's awesome. But if you're like, I put my kids to bed and I spend time with my husband, like that's what I do at that time. But, I'll be up at 6 a.m. my time, which is 3 a.m. your time. Right. So it'll be in your inbox by the time you get up. Like, then that's the expectation that you made.
Yeah.
And so like, I think it has everything to do with like us. And I think also like accepting that like, it's just not that impressive. Like being available all the time.
Important.
Yeah.
Like putting stake in not everything is the same level of important. Not everything is a fire. Like, can it wait till tomorrow? It can, because I'm not going to get an answer tonight.
Right.
I think working in LA, it just is like boom, boom, boom. And I still do it. Like if somebody emails me, I will turn around right away and send that email. And then I'll be like, like that's just the level in which I do business, right? There is never a like, we'll wait and see in my mind. Because if somebody says to me like, Marlo, this person has a doctor's appointment. Can we get them cleared for a day that's working 3 weeks from now? My instinct is not to let it sit until like the next day or 2 days or whatever. Like I'm literally like emailing my line producer being like, I know this is in 3 weeks and I know that you're probably going to say no. And I know you're probably this, but like, I just want to address it now. And I notice that a lot of the times, like in our region, that the pacing is a little bit slower and things like that. And it's not bad. It's just different for me from like what I'm used to. And so I'm also taking stock in like learning how to not be like about not getting a response like right away.
Right.
So as in, setting boundaries and learning that not everything is like hair on fire. Not everything has to be like addressed at this moment. But if you're an actor and your agent emails you, yes, you should be responding.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm, as my caveat, saying that this is not for everybody, because I know actors are watching this, because, for them, not responding can be a missed opportunity.
Exactly.
So, you should absolutely be like on your email game with the people that are important to you.
Absolutely. The VIPs.
The VIPs.
Yeah.
So
last question.
Yeah.
Based on your life and for everyone listening, if you wanted everyone to get one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think it really is. You as a person is not defined by your job or what you accomplish or how many guest stars or how many co-stars you've booked or, how many panels you've sat on. It has to be more than that.
Yeah.
Like as an artist, there is certain expectations, but as like a genuine artist, knowing what brings you joy, like if you're not working, but you're producing your own YouTube videos, or you're writing, or, finding that joy someplace else so that you don't lose it. Like, I took stock in myself and I said, I am not feeling joy here. This is not fulfilling to me as a person, professionally or personally. Like, it's time to make a change. It's okay to do that. And there's not failure in doing that. It's just deciding that my happiness and my joy as a person is more important than what you give to other people's opinions. You know what I mean? Like,
so true. Yeah.
I don't care what anybody else thinks about me. I really don't, because my accomplishments make me proud. I don't do my job because I want to be cool to other people, like, gosh, half the people don't even know casting exists, let alone there's no ego here. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that as an actor, that's something that, like, you really have to take stock in. Like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I want to be cool to people? I want to be, like, visible to people? Or is it that I'm doing it to fulfill, like, a hole in your heart that you have for art? Or, like, there's so many, it's everybody's individual journey. But, like, it's knowing that, like, your accomplishments ultimately don't define you as more of the person that you are. And you shouldn't feel bad about yourself because you're not at a place where maybe you thought you would be at a certain age, or, at the tier of levels of acting. Like you said, you were like, I'm not doing one-line ballet anymore. And that's great. That's like taking stock, self-evaluation of where you are, and you're okay with that. Mm-hmm. And it's just being content with knowing that if I'm not doing something here, art-wise, that I can fill it, and you should be filling it with something else if that's the reason why you're doing this.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love that. And thank you for sharing that, because I feel like so many people, I think, needed to hear that too. So Marlo Tiede, thank you so much. It was awesome spending this time with you.
Thank you.
Again, it was so easy to talk to you. We could have been here for another hour easy.
I know, right? Part 2.
Yes, exactly. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Definitely subscribe and or follow if you haven't already, especially if you've made it this far, everyone. Definitely hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you all on the next one.